안녕하세요. 아침 10분 독서 하도록 하겠습니다. 세일러 있다가 말았는데요. 18 years ago, James Vane replied, "Why do you ask me? 18 years. Laughed Dorian Gray. Take me to the light and look at my face. James Vane stared at Dorian. Then he pushed him towards the light. In the light, he saw the face of a boy of 20. This man was too young. He was not the man who had destroyed his sister's life. My God, he cried, I nearly murdered you. Go home and put that gun away before you get into trouble, said Dorian, and he walked quickly away. James Vane stared after him in horror. Then a woman's hand touched his arm. Why didn't you kill him? She asked. He's evil. It's not the man that I'm looking for, answered the sailor. The man who I want must be nearly 40 now. That man is only a boy. A boy? The woman laughed. Her voice was hard. It's 18 years since I met Prince Charming, and his pretty face hasn't changed in all the time. It's true, I promise you. James Vane ran to the corner of the road, but Dorian Gray had disappeared. A week later, Dorian Gray was at his house in the country, where he had invited Lord Henry and several other friends. Among them was the pretty Lady Monmouth and her much older husband. Lady Monmouth was amusing and clever, and seemed to like Dorian Gray very much. One afternoon, as they laughed and talked together during tea, Dorian went out to fetch a flower for Lady Monmouth's dress. Lord Henry smiled at Lady Monmouth. I hope you are not in love with Dorian, my dear. He's very dangerous. She laughed. Oh, men are much more interesting when they are dangerous. Just then, they heard the sound of a heavy fall. Lord Henry ran out of the room and found Dorian lying unconscious on the floor. When Dorian opened his eyes, Lord Henry said, My dear Dorian, you must take care of yourself. You are not well. Dorian stood up slowly. I'm all right, Henry. I'm all right. As he dressed for dinner in his room, Dorian remembered what he had seen, and cold fear ran through him like a knife. He had seen a face watching him at the window, and he had recognized it. It was the face of James Vane. The next day, he did not leave the house. In fact, for most of the day, he stayed in his room, sick with fear. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw again the sailor's face. He tried to tell himself that he had dreamt it. Yes, it was impossible. Sybil Vane's brother did not know his name, and was probably on his ship at sea. No, of course, he had not seen James Vane's face at the window. But the fear stayed with him, dream or no dream. 2 days passed and Dorian grew less afraid. On the third day, a clever bright winter morning, Dorian joined his friends on a shooting party. With Lady Monmouth by his side, he walked to the edge of the forest, where the men were shooting at birds and small animals. The cold air and the sounds and smells of the forest filled Dorian with happiness. Suddenly, one of the men shot into the trees near them. There were two cries in the morning air, the cry of an animal and the cry of a man, both in pain. There were shouts and calls from the man, and then a man's body was pulled from the trees. Dorian turned away in horror. Bad luck seemed to follow him everywhere. People began to walk backward toward the house. Lord Henry came over to tell Dorian that the man was dead. Dorian shook his head. Oh, Harry, he said slowly, I feel that something terrible is going to happen to some of us, to me, perhaps. Lord Henry laughed at this idea. What could happen to you, Dorian? You have everything in the world that a man can want. Forget about this accident. It was just an accident, not murder. Then he added with a smile, but it would be very interesting to meet a person who had murdered somebody. What a terrible thing to say, cried Lady Monmouth. Don't you agree, Mr. Gray? Mr. Gray, are you ill again? Your face is so white. Dorian smiled and tried to speak calmly. It's nothing, he said quietly. But please excuse me. I think I must go and lie down. Upstairs in his room, Dorian's body shook with fear, like a leaf in the wind. He felt that he could not stay another night in the house. Death walked there in the sunlight. He decided to return immediately to London and to visit his doctor. His servant came to pack his clothes, and while he was doing this, he told Dorian that the dead man was a sailor, but no one knew his name. A sailor? Cried Dorian. He jumped to his feet. A wild hope filled him. I must see the body at once. He hurried to the house where the body lay, and when he uncovered the face of the dead man, he saw that it was James Vane. He cried with happiness and knew that now he was safe. The picture. You are going to be good, said Lord Henry. Don't tell me that. You are wonderful as you are. Please don't change. His long white fingers played with the flower on the table. It was spring in London, and the two friends were having dinner at Lord Henry's house. Dorian Gray shook his head. No, Harry, I've done too many terrible things in my life, and I'm going to change. I began my good life yesterday in the country. My dear boy, smiled Lord Henry, everybody can be good in the country. There's nothing to do in the country, so it's impossible to do anything bad. But tell me, how did you begin your good life? There was a girl in a village, a beautiful girl, an honest country girl. She loved me and was ready to come away with me yesterday. But I said no. I refused to destroy her young life. And I've left her as honest as I found her. Lord Henry laughed. You've left her with a broken heart, You mean? How can she be happy now with a country boy, after she had known you? Don't, Harry, cried Dorian. Can you never be serious? I'm sorry that I told you now. Let's talk about other things. What's been happening in London? Oh, people are still discussing poor Basil and how he disappeared. I don't know why. Because there are plenty of other things that they can talk about. My wife has run away with another man. Alan Campbell has killed himself. What do you think has happened to Basil? Asked Dorian slowly. I've no idea, answered Lord Henry. The English police report that Basil went to Paris on the midnight train on the 9th of November, but the French police say that he never arrived in Paris at all. If Basil wants to hide himself, and I really don't care, but if he's dead, I don't want to think about him. That is the only thing that really frightens me. I hate it. Harry, don't people say that the Basil was murdered? Said Dorian. Some of the newspapers